Dale Karch is the owner of Three Rivers Archery in Ashley, Indiana. Three Rivers caters to the traditional archer, and they have become the leading supplier for a growing niche of arrow flingers who choose the simplicity of stick and string, or maybe they're adding traditional gear to their existing equipment. Dale, welcome to the program.
Hey, thanks, Mike, and glad to hear from you, and happy to talk to you and your audience.
You know, I look at Three Rivers on your website, and it's just a family affair. You got a great staff of friends and family who really are dedicated to promoting archery across the board, and that's got to be a great day of work.
It is. It's very fulfilling when you come into work here. We're a family. I mean, everybody in here knows each other by first names. We socialize after work. Very, very knowledgeable staff. That's one of the requirements to work here, is that you need to shoot this equipment and understand it, because our customer base is very demanding when it comes to asking questions and expecting a honest answer. And I'm very proud to tell you that I've got some of the top-notch people in the industry working here.
Absolutely. Now, when did you first get the archery bug?
Well, I've been, believe it or not, shooting a bow and arrow since I can remember, which takes me back to about 8 years old. For some strange reason, nobody in my family before me ever did any type of bow hunting, and I just got hooked on it. You know, the old Fred Bear, American Sportsman, on Sunday, watching that show and seeing Fred go through the around the world hunting all these animals just made me dream, and I started like everybody else did, a fiberglass bow and chasing rabbits, and you know, when I finally got old enough to buy a license at age 12, I was out chasing whitetails. At that time, I was living in central Wisconsin, and it's just grown over the years. You know, it's a passion. It's when you find that thing in life that makes you tick. You know, you drop everything and you chase that dream, and that's what I've been doing. And very, very fortunate. I've got a strong family that supports me. My wife is part owner or half owner. Two of my sons work here, and it's just a joy to wake up in the morning and look forward to going to work every day.
You know, you mentioned Fred Bear's name. The influence that Fred has had on so many archers. Everybody started with a fiberglass Bear bow, and I remember when I was 8 years old, I found one under the Christmas tree, and I immediately was shooting my sister's stuffed animals in the basement, and then you progress to outside, you're shooting at milk cartons and boxes, and then you're out in the woods chasing bunny rabbits with your bow and arrow, and it really is a natural progression. And I still have the same excitement. I strung up my bear grizzly the other night at a campground. We had a bunch of kids there, and to see these kids who shoot compounds now have a natural instinct on that recurve, it was really something to behold.
Right. And you mentioned Fred Bear. He's been gone over 20 years now, but I've fortunately for me, I met him and had him sign a personal bow of mine. And the influence he left upon you just with one meeting was remarkable. It was a very rare personality he had to make you feel very comfortable and very important, regardless of who you were or what you did. He was very interested in you, and he influenced you. And I don't want to say he didn't influence me, but he did leave an impression on me that I carry to this day. And we have his 10 rules on how to run a business posted here at the work, and it's just great customer service and knowledge of the products. But you're right. Even to this day, Bear Archery is still going strong. Their traditional line of bows is improving, and they're looking forward to expanding that market here in the future with bringing out some, not new bows, but they're just improving the ones that Fred designed back in the 50s and 60s.
The designs that are copied, the standards in many cases.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. Now, how did you get started in the archery business?
Well, I bought a custom bow from a gentleman, and my background at that time, I'm a tool and die maker by trade. I built plastic injection tooling for about 20 years, and I purchased a custom bow. And as a tool and die maker, you have to live a precise working environment. Everything has to be perfect all the time, and when I did pick up my first custom bow, I was a little disappointed by the quality of the bow and the finish on it and everything, and I looked at it and put it down, and I said, you know what, I can build one better. Mm-hmm. And I started doing a bunch of investigating. I actually went to a number of Boyer's shops and talked to them and got information. I even paid a gentleman to teach me some of the tricks of the trade, and then I just dove in head first. I'm not. My personality is don't sit back and wait for somebody else to do it. It's let's take the reins in your hands and let's go. So I designed a form. I cut the forms out. I started learning the hard way. The very first bow I made was back in the early 80s, and I was so proud of that thing. Mm-hmm. I thought it was the prettiest thing out there. Well, I still have it. When I look at it, I'm a little embarrassed by it because it looks pretty crude. It looks like a 1958 Chevy.
Right.
And once I started making them, and I believe in myself a lot when it came to that bow building, I started doing shows, just small shows in the area, archery shoots. I'd go there, set up a table, put out a couple bows, talk to the folks, and get feedback what the customer wants and what they don't like, and I just started tweaking this until I got to a point where, this is interfering with my work, and either I'm going to do this full time or I'm going to just give it up because it's one or the other, and archery is what makes me tick. So it wasn't very difficult to convince my wife to let me quit my job and try to do this on the own. It was just very challenging to convince myself, and once I did and got my feet on the ground and started working really hard at this and working the shows, and my bows just started selling to the point where I couldn't make enough of them myself, and the accessories were just part of the program of selling bows. Guys need arrows, they need arm guards, they need tabs, they need quivers, they need everything. So the accessories started taking off phenomenal, and I ended up buying Three Rivers Archery here about 11 years ago. They were my main source of supplies, and it just didn't make sense to keep supporting them. So the place was up for sale, and Sandy and I just sat down one day and it's the American dream. It's start from nothing and work your way up. And today, we've got about 25 employees here working. We're known around the world. We have dealers in every country, and like I said, it just doesn't get any better right now.
With the advent of the compound bow, the emphasis switched to speed and heavy draw weights as opposed to the graceful release from a traditional bow and a sharp broadhead. A lot of times people ask me, hey, you shoot a lot of recurves and longbows. I'd like to try that. And they'll shoot a 70-pound or a 65-pound compound. The first thing I always tell them is, hey, let's say you're going to go to Three Rivers Archery and shop their warehouse, make sure you try something in the 40, 45-pound range. Is that about correct?
That's a good starting point. It's a little bit different muscles you're going to be using here when you're shooting traditional equipment. A longbow, southbow, or a recurve. 50. I personally hunt with a 55-pound bow around the world, and the only animal I did not shoot with it was an Asiatic water buffalo. There, the requirements were 70 pounds and plus bow, but Sandy hunts. 45 pounds. The states here, 30, 35 pounds is legal in just about every state. And you'll find that if you start out with a lighter weight bow, you're going to train your muscles, which are going to be different muscles. You're going to be using more of your back muscles. You'll have a lot easier time adjusting to pulling the bow back, having to hold all that weight at full draw, picking your spot, burning that hole in it, and having good form and a good release. So starting out light is going to be a great idea. You can always sell that bow or trade it in and then slowly move your way up. If you start out with a heavy bow, and just because you're shooting one in a compound, you're most likely going to tear something in the back or in the shoulder, and then you're just going to be you're going to start on the wrong foot, and it's not going to be pretty. So definitely, I would recommend the lighter bows. If
you're putting too much effort into the draw, you're going to develop all kinds of bad habits and quick releasing and not aiming properly. So it's from a practical standpoint, you could kill a bear with a 40-pound longbow.
Absolutely. Sharp cut-on-contact broadhead with a physically heavy arrow. What I mean by physically heavy, if you're shooting a 40-pound bow, I would like you to shoot a 400-grain arrow, 10 grains of arrow weight per pound of bow. In my situation, I shoot a 55. I want a 550 to 600-grain arrow. And believe me, like you said, you hit them in the right spot, that arrow usually goes right through them, and it's a very, very painless death. You're
right. Tell us about the line of tomahawk bows.
Well, tomahawk bows, again, I started that back in the early 80s, and with my background in tool and die, I picked a bow that I really liked. A good friend of mine was making them, and I took it to work and got this fancy machine called a digitizer, which tells you the angles and the radius and all this stuff, and I put that up on a computer screen and move things around a bit on the computer, and I got tangent points to these radii, and mathematically I have a perfect form. And luckily for me, when I put the laminations in there and found the right mixture of laminations, the tapers versus parallels and the amount of taper and how thick the glass is, I come up with a bow that, as I tell everybody, be careful when you shoot it because you're going to end up buying it. And a lot of guys laugh, and a lot of customers smile at me, but you know what? they just look at me and shake their head and go, "You got to be kidding me." I said, "This bow will sell itself." It's a reflex deflex, which is a combination of like a recurve on the end. The limbs turn a little bit. The deflex is in the handle, so that you have a semi-comfortable grip. You know, long bows are just usually straight grips, and their hand has got to be placed in there a certain way. Where recurves, it just lock your hand in there. But this design of the bow and the quality that of the wood we use, and just the process of making it, again, they come with. Personally, I give them a lifetime guarantee. In writing, you get a year, but I personally guarantee them. If you don't like the bow any time from the day you buy it, I will buy that bow back and make sure you are a happy customer.
Can't beat that. This is Dale Karch with us, the owner of Three Rivers Archery in Ashley, Indiana. Make a road trip up there on Saturdays. Your warehouse is open. Or visit you online at threeriversarchery.com. That's 3, the number 3, riversarchery.com. When people shoot all types of bows, my friends want to switch to traditional, and we talked about the different grips. You know, when I shoot my longbow, I have a broken wrist grip that it's like a fist grip. When I shoot my recurves, it's kind of a push-pull locked upper wrist. Is that correct?
Correct, Mike. Recurves, there's only one place you can put your hand in there, and it has to go in that same position every time. That's the benefit of a recurve, is you're going to get your hand placement in there exactly the same. I like your analysis on how your broken wrist to straight. And for me, I go by thumbs up. Thumbs up is a broken wrist. You do the thumbs up, and a longbow is going to lay right in the palm of your hand, and it's going to bump up against your thumb, and that's going to be the way you grab that bow every time. When you're shooting a recurve, I tell guys it's like pointing your finger at something. That's your straight wrist, and the thumbs up is a broken wrist. And that seems to be pretty easy for most people to remember how you shoot these bows. But longbows, I'm addicted to them. I switched over to a longbow back in the 80s, and I've never turned back to a recurve. And it's funny because that's how I started out my career, was shooting a recurve.
Right. I think we all have. If you do visit Three Rivers Archery, you're going to be walked through the process of making that switch to traditional, or it's a great way to start kids in archery because they'll get the most basic of form down with a traditional bow.
Correct. We've got bows for the youth that start takedown recurves that'll start around $50, and then you can run up to custom-made bows that as much money as you want to spend and however you want to dress it up, we can add it to the bow and make them for you. But this is the place to come. We've got all the recurves, all the long bows. We've got south bows here. We've got medieval bows here. And we've got a staff trained to help you out, and we have a range upstairs. So before you leave, we want to make sure you shoot this product, and you're very comfortable, and you're sure you want it.
Excellent. Give us a glimpse, Dale, into some of your most memorable traditional archery hunts.
Oh, the number one on my list is up in northern British Columbia, right on the Yukon border, moose hunting. That was one of Fred's favorite animals to hunt, and at that time, whitetails was my number one animal. But the country up there is truly wild. As my outfitter told me, he says, if you ever wonder what this place looked like 500 years ago, he goes, look out there, because he says nothing's changed. You know, the grizzly bears, the wolves, and the moose that are up there, and it is wild country. It's untamed country. It will treat you well, and it'll also hurt you if you're not very careful up there. But to see an animal the size, 1,000-pound adult moose standing 7 feet at the shoulders, and to get one of them. I shot this one here at less than 10 yards, so you're talking, less than 30 feet away. And this animal and I, we were just on a collision course, and I got hunkered down on a bank, and he come right at me. And I remember how impressive he was standing there facing me. Of course, you couldn't shoot when he's facing you because there's just the bad angles. But I can still to this day see the massive muscles in his chest, and I was thinking, my gosh, this thing can come over here and just pound me into the ground. And he's there's no way you're going to move. And I'm a big fan of watching animals and how their body movements are, and I had spent my summers on a dairy farm up in northern Wisconsin. So their body, he told me his position was that he's not aggressive and he's just curious, and once they start moving, and I can tell which way they're turning, and he pulled the back leg up and he moved it back, and I go, okay, he's turning, and I waited for him to turn, and you can imagine, this is a 50-inch Canadian moose. He's just huge, and he turns broadside at less than 30 feet away from me, and that's when your instincts kick in, and all the practice you've done for that year on shooting and picking a spot and learning how to focus, because your heart is just pounding. I mean, it's the most awesome adrenaline rush you can imagine. But he turned broadside, and I just came up to a full draw, and it's automatic. Don't remember anything other than seeing my four-fletched arrow right where it's supposed to be, and in 60 yards he was down.
Amazing stuff.
Yes, it was. It's like I said, it's been one of my top hunts.
There's no adrenaline next to having a 1,000-pound animal 10 yards away from you, and you're going to harvest this animal with a sharp stick. There's nothing on earth that compares to that.
Nope.
That's amazing. Well, Dale Karch, thank you so much. Continued success with Three Rivers Archery. It really is the one-stop shop for all things traditional. ThreeRiversArchery.com. Go there. The longbow and recurve experts. We want you to call them 866-732-8783. If you have a question about your bow or you're thinking about starting this is the place to go. And I'm going to head out there. How far are you from Chicago?
156 miles, right off of 80-90 and I-69.
All right, so you get a cup of coffee and a donut and a good friend, and you've got a great road trip for a Saturday morning.
Absolutely.
Well, Dale, I'll see you soon. Continued success, my friend.
Thank you, Mike. You have a good day.